Hi everyone. I just wanted to read something from 50 Years of Miracles to strengthen it in my own mind. So today we're going to go to chapter 30, The Forgiven World, and it starts with miracle principle number 30. By recognizing spirit, miracles adjust the levels of perception and show them in proper alignment. This places spirit at the center where it can communicate directly. There is an amazing paragraph in the Course. I am responsible for what I see. I choose the feelings I experience, and I decide upon the goal I would achieve. And everything that seems to happen to me, I ask for and receive as I have asked. Well, there's no blame and victimization in that. In fact, if you can accept that without reservation, you will be exceedingly happy for eternity, because you would not blame anything or anyone in the world for your upsets. A lot of times, people take that first statement from Jesus in the paragraph and they think, oh my God, if I'm seeing competition and starvation and a world that is falling apart, I am responsible for that. But what Jesus means by I am responsible for what I see is that I am responsible for how I see. How I see the world is my responsibility. I don't have to say, oh, I see a terrible world and I'm responsible for it, so woe is me. It's basically, I can choose to see the world clearly with the Holy Spirit, and the world I see is going to be a result of what I want. If I want the Holy Spirit's interpretation of the world, I will see the forgiven world. I will experience the happy dream. The Holy Spirit isn't going to rip anything away. The only way you can wake up is by collaborating with Him. If you believe you are separate from God, you will see a world that reflects that separation belief. If you believe in death, you will see a world that reflects death. If you believe in sickness, you will see a world that reflects sickness. If you believe in drama, you will interpret a very dramatic world life. Many of us seem to have gone through some very dramatic experiences, but it was just because we believed in them. They seemed to be real and dramatic when we went through them, and then sometimes we learned to let go. The state of mind is my measure of success. A consistent peace of mind is our goal, and I noticed over the years that I wasn't having strong reactions to things in the way I used to. I was with a friend on a ferry one day up in the Pacific Northwest. We were up at the front of the boat like Leonardo and Kate on the Titanic. We didn't know it at the time, but there was a giant foghorn behind us. Suddenly it blew off, and my friend, who was standing right next to me, jumped 2 feet in the air. It was so startling. I noticed that I didn't move at all, and I wasn't startled. I used to ride roller coasters as a thrill seeker when I was a kid, and some years later, when I was invited to go on one of those really wild rides, I wasn't affected whatsoever. I didn't feel dizzy or turned around. I went on one of those IMAX experiences once too, where they showed a fire truck and we were on the back of it. People were groping and falling all over the place, grabbing onto the steel bars, but I was just standing there and I thought, wow, A Course in Miracles is really working on my perception. For me, Those experiences were the symbols that transformation was taking place. Next chapter, evaluation. I was on a job many years ago where they did a job evaluation. Oftentimes I felt so unworthy and uncertain of myself that when I was talking to my superiors, my words would just drift off into a mumble. I actually mumbled. I would start off a sentence and then just mumble. I got an evaluation back once and it said, David eats his words. So speaking was not exactly a strength of mine, especially public speaking. But I was willing to give over everything to the Holy Spirit to use for this single, unified purpose. We are not just here to use an all is love approach. We are actually here to raise the darkness to the light, to expose the unconscious mind, and that is very practical. On one of our online retreats, one of our friends was speaking from his hospital bed whilst having chemo treatment. We are inviting whatever the perceptions are, inviting whatever the thoughts are, inviting whatever the beliefs are, because a lot of the beliefs are unconscious and not in awareness. We use relationships in a very active way for exposing things that the mind is not aware of, the unconscious thoughts, beliefs and patterns. This is a very authentic pathway to healing. It is not into denial, glossing over things, candy coating, or coming up with affirmations. We are all about exposing everything that is dark, not hiding anything, and bringing everything out. Our discussions are very open and raw. In fact, if we hid a little camera in some of our houses, most of the world would be shocked at the openness. Healing is frightening to the ego, and the ego is what needs to be exposed, rinsed, and finally washed away. In terms of salvation, atonement, and lasting peace of mind, this is something that will have to be washed. In the end, we say, okay, Holy Spirit, you're going to have to convince me that really I do have one responsibility, because all my past learning and conditioning is telling me that that's not true. To unwind from what the ego set up, we always have to give it over to the Holy Spirit. We can't just abdicate and say, I've listened to David today, he told me I have only one responsibility, and chop, chop, get the axe out. We actually have to be unwound out of what the ego made. That is why I teach people not to abdicate on things that have been set up, even if they are ego ideals. You have to be unwound from them by the Holy Spirit. The Spirit has to guide and direct you away. It takes the willingness to give them back to love, to give all these roles and concepts back to the Holy Spirit. Jesus says in the Course, only a single unified purpose can unify perception, and that is what projects are for. Of themselves, the projects don't mean anything, but they are a backdrop for channeling the purpose of the Holy Spirit. It is the purpose underneath the doings that means everything. The ego can get us really busy with much ado about nothing and loves ritual for ritual's sake. There is no inspiration behind ritual. Even the Course is just a brief ritual with the workbook for us to use as a springboard to henceforth hear only the voice for God. The voice for God will direct us in all subsequent learning and free us from ritual so that we can become totally spontaneous. We have this purpose. You could call it forgiveness, atonement, the miracle, or one single intention. You can call it anything. This one single purpose, exercised, practiced, and used to be done through will unify our perception. Whenever we have projects and tasks, the purpose behind them is only to unify perception. What would be the purpose of doing dishes or building or repairing something, teaching someone, singing and dancing, or whatever the form may be? The purpose would always have to be forgiveness, the unified perception, to be totally done through so perfectly by the Holy Spirit until there is no doer, and we are simply aware that we are one with Him. Jesus says in Lesson 152, the power of decision is my own. A change of mind is all that is asked by the Holy Spirit. Change the purpose by which you interact with the world. There is a purpose in your mind called forgiveness, and there is another purpose called ego or fear, hatred and anger. And that purpose is of division and separation. It is a faulty formulation of reality, an imposter self that really has no reality or existence. He is asking us to see that the only change we can bring is the change of our mind, and he isn't talking about a personal mind, he's talking about the mind. He isn't talking to us about an individual person's mind. Persons don't have minds of their own. Separation, the property of the body, is assigned to the mind by the ego and a belief in the concept of my own mind. Thank you.